Hello, this is Jon Speelman, and I can see I'm recording, so I'll move over now uh, with the video version of my latest column. Formerly Agony column, just a column about whatever I want to think about, which is column 193. And for obvious reasons, I've entitled it Long Live the King. Um, so we had a coronation here on Saturday of King Charles III. I'm actually recording this on Saturday. They got through all the extraordinary ceremony. I think we Brits really do ceremony very well. I think that's a reasonable claim, but it is quite extraordinary. And so it's the afternoon now. They've done their stuff. I've been out shopping. I'm home, and I'm going to do my column. And so I said we had a coronation in which we were encouraged to pledge our allegiance to the king from our living rooms. Okay, that's what happened. And Ding Liren's ascension to chess royalty was a week earlier, last Sunday. So obviously lots and lots has been written about this, but I wanted to write a little bit about the final moments, the surprising move at g6, and also about how they've comported themselves, these guys. So poor Nepo, after he'd lost, he knocked some pieces over, not on the board actually, but on the table, off the table, and he found it really quite hard to get off his chair, poor man. I mean, it's an awful thing. These things, these binary things where you either win or lose, are appalling. And Ding sat there and he remained sort of calm, but he covered his face because he may have been hiding some tears. He certainly, I believe, I haven't actually seen the interview with Fide, but I'm told he cried during it because when he described how he recovered from game 2, the horrible loss he had. So what I wanted to say, that the thing that stands out is just how well these guys behaved and how they struggled to maintain public decorum. It's not a thing that happens in sport nowadays. In football, footballers are supposed to run around when they score a goal and take their shirts off. I mean, they're not supposed to take their shirts off because they're booked, but they're certainly supposed to do some wild celebration, which possibly, like the haka or something, is supposed to intimidate the enemy, but it's also, I suppose it's just part of the spectacle. I don't particularly like it. I certainly don't like it in two-person games. And I said, well, rugby players and cricket players are normally quite a lot more restrained. And in chess, I didn't mention other mind sports. I mean, in poker, apparently, I've only ever watched poker on television. I mean, I don't play poker. It's just not something I'm good at, so I don't do it. And, the celebrations people undertake after they've not defied the laws of probability, but got some lucky probabilistic break, boggle my head. I just think they're bloody rude. But on the other hand, that is the way that people behave, obviously. And it's not something for me to comment on, really, because I don't play that game. It's up to them how they comport themselves. And for instance, in online blitz chess, people do things which they wouldn't do over the board. They play on with bishop against bishop, opposite bishop, or something stupid. And you think, for the love of God. But that's what happens. Now, anyway, so I like it that chess players attempt to maintain equilibrium in public. And I said I think it's completely natural to whoop with joy or to kick a door when you're in private. Actually, one of my most embarrassing moments ever when I was playing was that I lost to Julius Sachs, who's a very nice man. Sadly, of course, he's dead now, at Hastings, a horrible game. And I went out the door of the playing hall and kicked it. And I looked around and he was there, and I apologised profusely, of course, because, I didn't want to offend him. I just, wanted to get rid of my rage, but I should have waited until I was somewhere private before kicking a door. That was not the right place to do so. And I think what I said, if you allow your opponent too close to the whirlpool at your centre, you may be offering them succour and giving them psychological leverage. Not for that game, but for the next one, because they know how vulnerable you are, how explosive you are, how easy it is to destabilise you. Maybe they do instinctively anyway. So then, I said there'd been numerous articles. The one that I found most interesting was by Leoncio Garcia, the veteran El País reporter. He was born in 1956 too. He's about 6 months older than I am, in fact. I discovered. I thought he might be. I knew he was at least my age or around my age. And he interviewed Ding, and Ding said a couple of interesting things. He said that, well, what did he say? To build a strong team so that I can be even stronger, and I'm open to all challenges, including Magnus Carlsen if he wants to try again. Now, sorry, I had that in the spot there, didn't I? Now, Carlsen, of course, there was a question at a press conference, I don't know which one, I just remember it, where somebody said, could Magnus Carlsen just cut straight through and challenge the winner to the World Championship? They said, ask FIDE. Mr. FIDE, I didn't see which Mr. FIDE it was actually, said no. That was the one-word answer. And of course that couldn't happen, especially, I mean, Ding, being in a state system, he couldn't do that. But maybe I thought maybe they could play some sort of multifaceted match for the champion, multi-chess champion or something, you know, not world champion, of course, in classical chess and rapid play and blitz. I don't think it'll happen, but, you know, it occurred to me as not being absolutely impossible, as long as it was set up so it was absolutely clear it was not for the World Championship. And I assume that Carlsen and Ding will play each other quite a lot in the coming months. They normally do. I then said, of course, they'd now gone on to Bucharest, three of them, Ding and Nipo and Richard Rapport, Ding's splendid second, and they're playing each other. It's actually an all-play-all tournament at a proper time limit. I don't think I made that clear in the article. I may do afterwards. And well, we'll see. But I don't set much store by it because well, they're all, you know, they're post a match, aren't they? A week later, you know, they've had a huge, wonderful roller coaster ride and trauma, or it's still a trauma to win, I think, but a nice trauma. You know, I'm not sure what the word is for sort of a life-changing event. Anyway, so then I only gave 2 games. I said that I was at the Foreign last weekend while this was happening. I was playing Alexei Shirov, and I lost quite an interesting game, which I'm going to show you, but I'm not going to show you the opening because it's an opening I still play. So I've had very, very slight outlines of the opening, and that's all. And you'll have to, you know, you can research it yourself, obviously, if you wish to. But I've got to the critical position of my thinking process, which caused me to do something suicidal. And first, I'm going to just talk about the Rook G6 game. So, well, I can get to Rook G6, can't I? What I did say, I was a bit surprised that Ding carried on playing the Lopez, because he seemed to have almost equal positions out of the opening. Then about 3 moves later, he was on the ropes. It happens so often against Nipo. I just thought Ding doesn't quite like these positions. He had all these games where Nipo ended up with the white squares, with a bishop or a knight in d5 or something, and it wasn't pleasant at all. And I thought, you know, did you have to do this? But of course you have to do something. I mean, Ding did very well when he played the French, of course, in game whatever it was, game 7, I think. But then he lost it and probably thought he couldn't repeat it. And what else can you do? You can play the Scandinavian, but Nipo will have something to punch him with. You can play the Caro-Kann, but you might get punched maybe by this variation. You don't know. Unless you're going to build a fortress, you don't want to start erecting sort of a cardboard fortress for the last game and hoping that the enemy thinks it's real. So so he played the Lopez, and eventually, I don't know, at some stage, what does this say? This nice move, it must be what it means to say, rather than muse, I assume. I've said mice again, I'm sorry. It was not a move by mice, it was a move by men, wasn't it? And, okay, Nepo's got worse for a bit, then he got it, then he equalised, big battle, you've all seen this game, and they got to this position where everybody was saying they're going to agree a draw. And you can see why. It's obvious he's going to agree a draw. They played their moves. First he plays the brave bishop b4. I mean, if you played bishop d4, it would just be equal, wouldn't it? Presumably. Nothing really would happen there. So he could have done that. But he went bishop b4, and then queen e4 check, and after a repetition, Ding played rook g6, to the amazement of all. I mean, you know, there were many commentaries of people basically giving up. I think also to the amazement of Nepo. Now, the question is, was this a sensible thing to do? Because it's not a terribly good move. I mean, it gets his rook pinned, and after h4, you would be in some danger of getting a position where you were very, very slightly worse, maybe. But, all right. So does that matter? And the answer is, it's up to you. I mean, yes, it's perturbing that you might be a little bit worse, but it's a risk analysis, isn't it? Which I guess Ding had already done in his head, where he thought, if I reach the blitz, I'm going to be more serious underdog than in the rapid play. So if I have a chance to play for a win in the rapid play, I should. I guess that's what he thought. And it's the thing is, when you play chess, you analyse chess moves, you use your chess intelligence, but you mustn't leave your own native intelligence at home as well. You need to think sometimes. Well, for instance, if somebody does something different in the opening, you have to think, why has this guy done something different? What is going on? Because I can see he's done something he normally doesn't do. So there ought to be a reason, and I'm not quite sure. What is it? And, you know, you should think about that in intelligence terms rather than really in using your intelligence as well as your chess intelligence, and try to avoid the main thrust of his analysis. Because the important thing nowadays is to avoid playing a centaur. Playing a man and a machine united against you is pretty disastrous very often. You have every opportunity to get your head kicked in. You know, because machines analyse better than people, don't they? We know that. And so you must try to avoid that. Anyway, Ding played this move. I also said that I thought that maybe rook g6 was slightly like taking on a long pot in snooker. I mean, we just had the World Snooker Championships. Wonderful, wonderful players. Completely impossible what they do, obviously. Lots of things are impossible. Gymnastics is obviously completely impossible, but people do it. And so there we are. So the thing is, sometimes they take on a long pot. And the question is this a sensible thing to do? Because there's a palpable risk, if they do that they will miss and they'll let their opponents in. On the other hand, if they get it, then there's great reward. So it's a risk-reward situation. And Ding decided on rook g6, and Nepo immediately blundered with queen f5. h4, h5, rook c2. I gave some random line. And that's all right. I mean, nothing wrong with this. I mean, you go rook b5. I mean, you do actually get this in, don't you? Rook to there, pawn to there, rook to the 7th. But it really isn't much, is it? Rook to the 7th, king to there, rook to there, king to there, rook to there. And you don't really get out as white. And, you know, all right, you can play a little bit, but of course it's completely... If I ask its majesty, it should say half a pawn, I'm imagining, maybe even less. I'm asking Stockfish 50.1 what it thinks, and it's saying even less than half a pawn. Okay. So it would have been a tiny, tiny, tiny risk, but nothing serious whatsoever. And what happened, of course, is that Nipe played Queen F5, which is just a mistake. That's a blunder. Perhaps 1.5 or even 2, although the engine doesn't mind, but I do. That is a question mark. And after Queen D3, apparently Black is winning this position, because he's managed to unpin. Nipe just missed Queen D3, didn't he? Obviously. He thought H5 was going to happen. And on they poddled. There are some interesting moments. I don't know if everybody's seen these. Well, the first thing is that C2 wins here, but I think at about 48 seconds. Rook to there, pawn to there, king to here, Queen F7 is basically the end of that. Because when you take the queen, there'll be Queen takes F2 check, which is going to be pretty disastrous. So that's, nothing happens really. And if he takes, then Queen C6 completely stops everything. So it would have been winning, but you can see why your man really didn't want to get involved. I mean, this is the simple variation. It's probably pawn equals queen that he didn't like. So rook d6, and they swapped, and now Ding got it a little bit wrong. And at this point, actually, it's okay. A3, Queen b3 was possible. And here, interestingly, well, there are two good moves. H5, bishop f8, queen to there, bishop takes, queen takes, queen d3, queen a8. And apparently that's a draw. Because you basically, well, when you think about it, Queen a8 is the only move. It's not a very difficult move. If Black gets an a2 and Queen b1, he wins, so you have to stop it. And you have to stop it in such a way that you can check on e4 or... I mean, it's not completely trivial, is it? I suppose it is, actually, yeah, because Queen b3, check, and Queen a8, you can't go Queen g8 because a queen takes pawn. So basically Black has no way to improve in this position. Though he'd bloody well try to, I can tell you that. He'd play something like g5 and start running his king around and trying to win. So that's one way to draw. I mean, the engine tells us. And the other is bishop takes g7, king takes, check. And the interesting thing here is that you just don't get to get your king in, because king d3 would lose to queen g6 check. Let's just put that in, king d3, 2 question marks, queen g6 check. I mean, it's possible king d2 you can still draw, but you're certainly in trouble. I wonder, yeah, you're certainly in trouble then. And you basically don't have, you can't somehow get your king in. Just isn't possible. So it's a draw. So that would have been, and of course after queen g6, then he's in control. He did all this stuff, and this bit wasn't difficult. g4 was completely desperate. And that was the way they stopped. So that was that game, and it's not, I know everybody's seen it, but I wanted to talk about the considerations behind rook g6 and the fact that chess moves, you don't always decide on chess moves for purely chess reasons. And then I've said here, since I still play the carry, I'm going to turn it round because I play this position as Black. I'm not going to talk about this too much. Now, you can play queen a5. I have talked a bit about the opening. And basically there are two things. There's this line, and otherwise you have to play this position. And the question is, are you lucky, punk? From my point of view. And maybe the punk is lucky, maybe he isn't. Magnus drew, Carsten drew with Van Foreest in a game as Black. It looks, I mean, it's a lot of moves of development, and it's a question of analysing it properly. But I don't like being this far behind in development. So even if an engine says to me, don't be such a wussum, this is perfectly okay, I'm not necessarily enormously delighted by it. Anyway, I might play this one day, or I might even go back to Queen A6, but the game I gave, which I lost, was pretty vile. So now the main line goes bishop here, queen here, pawn, knight there, pawn there, queen takes b2. And it's a complete mess, and there are various games, and good luck deciding what you think about it. Now, anyway, knight f3 was played, slightly to my surprise. I thought he was going to go bishop g5. Knight to there, queen to there, queen to there. I mean, they can also go c4, obviously, is also possible, or b3 and c4. Okay, but I'm just, So I thought this ought to be okay for black, though it's been played before, of course, but it's white has quite a lot of play. Rook c8, c3, c5. There are obviously alternatives. Knight bd4, knight takes c5 is one of them. I took that way. I thought quite a long time. Now, I thought I was okay here, but I've missed this move, and I'm not really okay now. I'm definitely struggling at this point, even if it is okay. So, he's played one unexpected move, a4. Clearly, I'm a bit scared of Alexei now. He's obviously a much better player than me. He probably always was, but there was a time when, I was in the world's top 10 for a bit, so I could pretend to play him. So, I wanted to castle, but I thought bishop b7. Now, rook e8, rook takes rook, knight g5, you actually can resign. That's a complete catastrophe. So you have to go takes here, and queen g5. And what I'd missed, I'd played queen d3, obviously, but I thought b4, bishop b6, a5. Can't take in d4 because he'll play bishop f6 at the end, so I'll have to go bishop c7. He'll go rook c1, I'll have to go bishop b8, and my position is disgusting. Well, that at least is how I felt about it. I thought this is repulsive. I don't know how true that is, but that's certainly how I felt about it. So that's why, but of course bishop takes d4 is fine here. Well, you take, and then you must go bishop d6, because if bishop f6, you just take twice. Take with the knight and take with the queen, and white is losing. So I analysed this, and then I rather impulsively played f6, which is ridiculous, really. I took and played f6. And I hoped it would be okay. And it's not. The first thing is queen checks and rook c1 is what he first looked at, but he sort of wasn't quite sure. And in the end, he decided not to. And I suppose I can console myself about this game that I did bluff him quite well, in the sense he didn't play a completely winning line. For some reason, I was thinking he'd take first. Yeah, that's right. That's why I thought that he would. Is it here? Yeah, I thought he was going to take an f6, in which case this line wasn't dangerous, because I would have rook d7. So that's very sloppy analysis, actually. And in fact, rook c1, pawn takes bishop, rook to there, queen takes pawn, b3, queen b5, rook b7, or queen a1 check, king here, castles is the only move. I mean, you can't play knight f8. If knight f8, just something awful. 8. I think, how are we going to win this? Well, even just knight takes g5 or rook takes g7 or something. I think you go rook takes g7. Then you can go rook h7, can he? Then you can take an e6, and you're taking everything. I'm looking to see, or you can just do this, can't you? Rook takes this, threatening queen c6 check, and that is the end of the game. castles take. And there are two ways to avoid the perpetual check. One is just to play g3, because there's mate down there, and you can also, in this sort of position, you can always do that as well. That also wins completely, obviously. So, brilliant analysis by me, but he believed me. He took, and I thought he was going to play knight e5, but actually it's not as good as I thought. Knight to there, takes. I thought he'd try f4 now. Queen c2 is better for white, actually. Queen c2, exclam. How much better is white here? Let me ask its majesty. Just how bad is this? Knight f7, queen g6. Do we do queen c6? Queen takes pawn. Bishop b6. And my pieces are quite good, actually. Queen g4, presumably. Knight d8, it says. It's an interesting move. Knight d8, exclam. So this is Stockfish. And that's saying, I mean, it's still plus over the line probably, but so that would have been, but I was looking at f4 and some other line. f4, which is not a good move actually. He should do that. f4. I thought this was better for him because I thought bishop b6, and I thought this would be winning for him because you get 3 connected past pawns. But he actually just goes knight f7 first. Rook takes pawn check, king d7. He's all right. Nothing very much wrong with his position here. Anyway, he went to just bishop f4. Got to go here. Take, rook to there, and he wins a pawn. Here, take, here. And he'd analysed, well, I mean, I played quickly. I played bishop c7, and to be honest, I didn't see rook takes b6, which is ludicrous. But I think I'm losing anyway. I mean, I think my position's disastrous, whatever I do, actually. If knight c4 or something, rook a6, knight takes a5, check, I mean, my king's dead. So I'd lose. So I went there, and he took, and I should have played bishop takes b6, takes, which is plus minus, but at least I could fight a bit. I went bishop f4, which is a bit stupid. Because now, unfortunately, he has that move. I can't play f5, so f5, question mark, knight e5, rook b8, rook, I don't know, a7. Just wins. So we got to there. I got a tiny bit of play. He played very simply. I didn't try that hard. There's nothing to try, really. And here I resign. I mean, if I don't take on d4, I'm certainly going to lose, though I shouldn't, I suppose. And if he takes, push, rook, push here. And I knew I was losing. Actually, I didn't even calculate this particular. I knew rook h5 was winning, because he's going to win the e-pawn for the h-pawn, and then queen his pawns. That's going to win fairly easily. But actually he wins completely, because if e5, g4, king to there, pawn to there, or if king e5, rook f7, exclam. So quite an interesting game while Ding was becoming world champion, which I hope you've enjoyed. And that's the end of today. I will be back. What is today? Today is the... I'm confused. Today is the 6th. Well, the 7th is Sunday, so I will be back on Sunday the 21st. And I guess we'll have gone past the World Championship and move on to something else. So, I hope you've enjoyed this today. Yes, I am still recording. Excellent. And I'm going to stop now. Let me at least put this on here somewhere more civilised to stop. Have a final end of the column. Cheers then, and see you in a fortnight.